But welcome everyone. My name is Matthew Glezos. I am normally the regular host for the Toronto DAO Twitter space. I say normally because I was not Samir filled in with me last week, so thank you to Samir for that while I was gone. I'm super excited to have Martin from Blocksense as our special guest this week. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. And I want to give a shout out to Kaz here. And I also see we have a Looshi from Blocksense, so that's Shopi. Hope I'm not butchering that. So good to meet you, and thanks for having me here. My background has predominantly been building B2B SaaS companies over the past 15 years. Worked for SAP in their global headquarters in their management consulting division, then scaled the service company from 60 to 120 in 6 months. Then I opened the UK office. I then worked in natural language processing and machine learning. So I helped take a company. I went from inside sales to heading SaaS sales to running sales marketing operations, then growth. And eventually we ended up selling that business. When it comes to the blockchain space, the most exciting thing I've been working on so far is working with the Blocksense team. So Blocksense, I met them through a friend of mine that runs a venture capital company. He told me, "Hey, do you know this four-person founder team?" I was like, "No, I don't know these guys." He said, "Well, ACCZ wants to lead their pre-seed. So you want to meet with them, see what's up?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." It was a half an hour chat and it turned into a 3.5 hour conversation. And so I felt really compelled and inspired by the founders, and I decided to eventually drop everything and back the team up. So that's been a wild ride over the past 13 months, full time for me. So happy to be here, happy to chat, Blocksense, distributed compute, etc. Hey, Lisan, I see you joining. Welcome.
That is quite a impressive resume.
It's been a fun ride. I think there's several projects that we've gone through to good exits, and there's just countless failures and learning. So it's a rewarding journey. But I think some of the kindest, most successful, and impactful mentors I met, they've just gone at it many, many times, right? So that's just the journey. Building a startup isn't for the faint of heart.
Oh, definitely is not. Like even I'm not in startup mode. Uh like said, like I was there in Poland to present an academic paper.
Mhm.
And they paid me a little bit, but I do want to take that further, MVP next step and go there. But I will, if all goes according to plan, I will evolve into startup. And even now it's a lot of work. And like I'm not even don't even have expenses yet, just my time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh
Wish you luck with that. Happy to chat about that sometime.
oh, thank you, thank you. I'm probably going to take you up on that, so thank you very much.
Mm.
So why don't you tell me a bit about BlockSense?
Yeah, sure. So Blocksense is building a distributed compute network. So you probably know some of the Berachain guys in the Berachain team. I imagine I know they're Toronto based. Um, I remember meeting Papa Bear in a cigar room in Denver, and I was like, he's like, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, building a distributed compute network." A16Z backed us up. We closed a 4 million pre-seed in September, and he said, "Why the hell would A16Z crypto back up a compute network in 2024?" Right? This was September last year. I said, "Great question." And so to understand what Blocksense is, you need to understand why investors get excited. And so I'll talk you through that. Um, to figure this out, you actually need to look at a core element here, which is consensus. So let me break this down. Imagine that you take 100 people in Toronto and you ask them, what's the temperature? And so whoever guesses close to the median, you give them a reward. Now, people can collude though. So you need to create a system that's collusion and bribery resistant, right? because if they can figure out what's the average or they can manipulate it, you have trouble on your hands. So if you create a system where people cannot collude and is bribery resistant, the based on game theory, your best strategy as a player is to tell the truth, right? So imagine I'm asking you, what's the temperature in Toronto? You're going to give me your best guess, but because you can't see what everybody else will say and you want a reward, you're most likely to be truthful and honest. So let's take this a step further and explain how do you make it collusion and bribery resistant. Let's imagine that these 100 people, we're not asking all of them what's the temperature. You only ask a subset, a secret committee. So let's imagine that you ask 10 people. Now, these 10 people, they cannot prove that they were selected to answer the question. To do that, they would need to reveal their private key, right? So what that means is that if I ask a question, if an attacker wanted to bribe someone, they can't know who was really selected to answer the question. They would basically have to bribe everybody. Where things get even more fun is you could say, well, the attacker could still bribe everyone, right? Well, if they do that, what we have is vote secrecy. So when you vote or when you tell me, hey, the temperature is such, you cannot prove how you voted. And so what that means, again, using game theory, you would be incentivized as a voter to take the bribe, but also then tell the truth because you want to maximize your reward. So in this way, by using game theory to achieve the consensus, you're essentially creating a collusion and bribery resistant network. So a Schelling point is a concept in game theory. This is something that was written a long time ago. Oh, actually, not that long ago. We're thinking some of these game theory principles are written about in the 60s. But when you use game theory to achieve the consensus, what you're building is this bribery and collusion resistant network. And where things get really exciting for venture capital investors, for angels, is when you understand the way the consensus mechanism works, you realize how many things you could build and address. So what this means is you don't need to just ask people, hey, what's the temperature in Toronto? What you could do by implementing this system is you could build a distributed compute network that essentially runs any kind of distributed compute, CPU or GPU. So what you could do is you could be asking a question of what's the price of this asset? You could ask what's the temperature at this place. You could resolve prediction markets as well, right? You could say what's the outcome of this question, and then you could have these different nodes go out and find the answer and then report it back. And as long as they achieve consensus, your consensus is the outcome, right? So Blocksense, many people think, hey, this is an Oracle, but it's so much more. Oracle is just an entry point to solving a painful problem in the space. It's actually a distributed compute network.
Wow. I'm not gonna lie, I understood like half of that, but it is very interesting.
So think of it this way. Today, you have these whole verticals of tech infrastructure. So you have oracles, for example, that report price feeds. Then you have, if you think about AI on the blockchain, what does that mean? At an abstract level, whatever the practical vision of this or the practical application, it means running machine learning models on other people's machines, right? So basically, we're saying if AI on the blockchain is successful, it means that eventually people will be running machine learning models on other people's machines, right? But in that case, if you're the one who's running the models, you're not incentivized to run the big expensive models, right? So let's imagine that there's a network that runs AI models. On your computer, you're just running a node, and I want to run a query with a large model. You would be incentivized to actually run it through something cheap. So you want to maximize your reward. So the problem there is eventually, whatever the future of AI on blockchain looks like, we're talking about distributed running machine learning on distributed compute or running large language models. In that case, how do you make this verifiable or trustable? So if you have an underlying mechanism to achieve consensus that's collusion and bribery resistant, you could basically use the same technology. So instead of saying, hey, we'll build an oracle or we'll build, I don't know, a system to provide answers for prediction markets, because we're seeing that prediction markets are popping up. What you're saying is, I'll build a distributed compute network that's going to use game theory to achieve the consensus, making it collusion and bribery resistant. So this is where venture capital companies, investors, that's where their eyes turn to dollar signs, because they basically realize you could address so many use cases virtually with this core underlying technology. I know I've been talking for a while, so I'll just stop here.
Is this the
Let
zero
me know if
knowledge
this makes
part
sense.
of this though?
Yeah, so ZK has an element here that's very important. So what's happening is any node in the network downloads a piece of software and runs it locally. And so the beauty of using ZK tech is that if you're using zero knowledge technology, what you're doing is you're publishing a proof on the chain, but you're not actually publishing the result publicly. So this is exactly why an attacker cannot see that you're selected to vote, and then cannot see how you voted on a specific question. So if you look at UMA as an oracle, I have a lot of respect for the UMA team and the Across team, but there is a vulnerability by design in the UMA protocol that gets exploited from time to time. So because we're doing the actual voting off chain and we're using ZK proofs, an attacker cannot use doesn't have the knowledge to actually collude or bribe other nodes. But with UMA, have you ever placed bets on prediction markets like
Me,
Poly
no,
Market?
but I
Okay,
know how it works, but I've never done it
yeah,
myself because I don't gamble.
okay. Lesan, Kaz, Sam, any of the other people that are listening, react if you actually place bets on Poly Market, made some money, lost some money. It's just going to be good to know. So prediction markets, specifically Polymarket, uses UMA. Half of the TVL for UMA basically comes from Polymarket. But the way UMA works is um, it would resolve an answer to the market. And then if someone wants to dispute that, a dispute process would be kicked off. But then whales, so large token holders of UMA, would step in on the resolution. So in March this year, Poly Market, March, UMA, there was the scandal actually. Yeah, it's March 26th. You can look this up. So what you could do is in the last moment, you could place a bet. So let's say the question is something ridiculous, like is the sky blue or red? Obviously, a lot of people are going to say the sky is blue. In the last moment, someone could place an outsized bid and say, well, the sky is red. They win. And then people can dispute this and say, well, wait, no, that's false. And this would be escalated. And then UMA Wales would get an opportunity to vote on this. Now, if you control enough UMA tokens, or if you bribe the people that would step in on the dispute resolution to vote for you, they can also come in and say, no, the sky is red. And so because the voting happens publicly, um, you can theoretically you could argue that you could write a smart contract that incentivizes bribery. So what you could say is it will place a bet, and when this bet goes in the other direction and we win, we could put up a smart contract that would reward with this you could literally also calculate what you would want your bribe to be. A smart contract that would reward a whale to vote in our favor, and if we win, we would distribute the reward with them. So that's pretty messed up because it's an architectural limitation. So what's novel about Blocksense is applying game theory to achieving consensus in a distributed compute network. Regardless if it's us or somebody else, someone's going to figure this out and build it up to scale, because ultimately it would just create a more efficient um, network, and it would allow you to resolve all sorts of problems. You look at Kalshi today, right? So Polymarket raised 2 billion. Polymarket are using an oracle that's vulnerable by design, and they have basically a manual override on top of this. They have people tracking these things because there's been multiple scandals. Kalshi actually has people resolving the markets, which is ridiculous. Like that doesn't it doesn't make any sense. You could make a way more efficient system. And currently you have oracles that don't even touch non-price data. So architecturally they're not fit for this. And then you have UMA that has this vulnerability by design. So I think there's a lot that can be done to improve the underlying technology.
Like I find this the zero knowledge, like personally I've been involved, like found it very fascinating. And for example, what I was presenting on, because I wrote an academic paper that has yet to be published because academia is the most anal thing of all goddamn time. It's one of those things where it's easy to go from like 0 to 90% writing the paper than it is to go from 90 to 10%. Like I would say it took me like less than a month to write 90% of the paper, and I've been spending the last like 3 months fine tuning it. But anyways, more besides that mini rant, it's been on using like zero knowledge proof to store healthcare data because
Mm,
like my friend, how I got into this is my friend works in healthcare research, and it's always like a pain to get healthcare data because which it should be, because they're worried about the patient privacy. And so yeah, I was presenting a paper on how I could make data more accessible for researchers while at the same time preserving the information, the sensitive information on the patients. So yeah,
mm,
that's just something I've like. That's my personal connection with zero knowledge proof, and
mhm.
I always find it very fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's been a lot of companies that raised money in the previous cycles for this. It's just hard tech. It's funny because we're actually seeing a lot more attention to this now than say a year ago. But there are teams that have been building cornerstone tech in this area for quite a while. I think a lot of ZK tech is inevitable. Like you're seeing Google casually announcing that they'll be using ZK technology to verify people's age and documents. You're seeing these leaks as well, like platforms are scanning documents for user verification. Then it turns out that they've been keeping these documents or copies of them. So ZK tech just makes sense. It's just a very hard thing to build, and there's been a lot of progress made. We're pretty close to the AdStack team. I have great respect for them. Been working with them on a couple of fronts, even not necessarily related to just delivering the services that Blocksense delivers.
I know it's bad saying this, but I often feel like these leaks help your cause. Um, even with because decentralization is a big part of this, and I was just pointing out at my presentation in Poland. Look what happened with AWS like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, part of me was just like, when that uh, like downtime happened, I was kind of like, this is awesome. Like,
Hmm.
because it's something I could easily point to as like proof of why we need to do something like this, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with you. AWS had an outage again yesterday, although it was shorter and limited to a specific region, but it's a very kind of obvious point. I agree.
Um, so like, why did you start with oracles?
That's a great question. So when we started this, there were a lot of assumptions about the space and a lot of observations. And what you do as a startup is you say, okay, this is my view and understanding of the world. You lay out your assumptions, you examine them carefully, so you're honest with yourself. I consult a lot of smaller teams, as friends building companies. A friend of mine just did a 4 million raise. He's a solo founder building an AI company for supply chain. One of his first customers is Neuralink. And so what I would do is I would sit down with him and I would question his thinking to make sure we just get everything out on paper. So as a startup founder, you do a similar exercise. You need to be very honest with yourself and with your partners. You say, this is my understanding of the world. These are my assumptions. These are my hypotheses. And then you go out and test them. Specifically, when it comes to oracles, especially we can go back a year ago, you look at this and you're thinking, okay, there's Chainlink, there's Pith, Redstone has been catching up a lot. But Chainlink would charge chains millions. Um, they are the originators of the push model. Then Pyth has the pool model. You need to maintain off-chain infrastructure to use them. They would charge you in the six figures as a chain. And then Redstone had come in. I think they've built a decent business and a decent name for themselves. They were building for 3 years previously before they even launched the product. And Redstone would undercut, and they can come in cheaper to start with compared to a Chainlink. But then the moment you want additional feeds, you want custom feeds, depending on the importance of the feed, you might get scalped as well. So at the moment where we're talking about the multi-chain future, you have all of the stacks, you have all of these roll-up as a service companies. A roll-up as a service company can help you get the chain up and going, but they're not going to go and negotiate with an Oracle on their behalf. So this looks like a bottleneck that slows down the whole space, and at the same time, an opportunity to apply this technology, a lower hanging fruit, if you will. Because theoretically, you could use this technology to resolve prediction markets. You could use it to bring any data on chain, not just price data. You could use it to build verifiable compute. There's many applications. That's precisely why, when A16Z learned about the team, they actually really wanted to lead a pre-seed last year. So this was the bet, saying, okay, we think oracles can be a lower hanging fruit where you could actually disrupt this space and offer something with a very different business model. That's the thinking, really. Now, talking about whether this is the best way to apply the technology, that's a good question. We have been learning a lot over the past year. We've deployed on many chains. I would eventually write a very, very long form article on Oracle specifically, because I think a lot of people may think, hey, it's just about you build good technology and people are going to use this. That's not the case. You may think, okay, what you need to actually follow people's interests and understand what does the chain want? What does the protocol want? How do incentives work? Right. So if you think about oracles more broadly, or let's think about the protocols. So a year ago, prediction markets weren't really a big thing. And even today, you could argue it's basically Kalshi and Polymarket. And Polymarket's using a flawed oracle or an oracle that has a vulnerability by design. And Kalshi isn't even using crypto to resolve, or crypto technology, Web3 technology to resolve the markets. So prediction markets aren't a thing. On the AI side, you've seen eigenlayers pivot. You need to have a shit ton of money and a long runway to choose to build verifiable compute as a platform or a marketplace. So I understand their bet. I like Nadera a lot. Um, but you don't do this as like a small, scrappy startup. So it made sense that we go for price feeds. Now, with what we've been learning over the past year, we've actually had some new products that we're developing. So there's a thing called Agent Harbor. So we're saying, okay, the reason why a lot of people believe in us and back the team up is because of this core belief around building verifiability and this flexibility of using ZK technology to build verifiability, distributed verifiability. So based on this, we've been working on a new product within the AI context, which is called Agent Harbor. So starting with oracles, was this the best bet from where we were sitting at the time? Yes. Do you want to just double down and focus on this only based on where the market is at, where user interest is, based on how incentives work in the space, where venture interest is? I don't think so. That's why you're seeing the business adapt, and that's a very typical thing for early stage teams. So TLDR, why start? It looked like the most reasonable spot to come in, looking at the broader space and power dynamics and the demand. Is it the best place to grow? Um, I think just doing this alone isn't the best bet today. That's why we've been building Agent Harbor as well.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And on top of you building a lot, you've kind of got this kind of cool marketing campaign, I should say, or community building campaign with pirates. Like, why pirates?
I think that's a good question. So this is a bit it's funny because the origin of this really comes from this infrastructure problem and oracles. So the dominant player in the oracle space by far is Chainlink, right? And they've done a lot to advance the whole space, really. So Chainlink, they have the Chainlink Marines. Now, I don't know how long you've been in the space, but the Chainlink Marines have been notorious, taking over Reddit chats and just being these advocates for the product. At a time when essentially Chainlink basically became the de facto leader in the space and there were no better alternatives. So at this point, you could say, well, Chainlink's the leader in the category and the Chainlink Marines are their advocates. And I think it is a very playful idea to actually create your identity around pirates, as Blocksense is building this novel technology that's using game theory at the core to achieve consensus to ultimately build distributed, verifiable trust layer. So as opposed to the Marines, you have the pirates. That I we There's a really funny story actually. Our now CEO, former head of product, Magnus, I'll actually pull up his profile to share it with you. Magnus's profile on Twitter is 0x no escrow. So his Twitter bio says reformed anthropologist. So he did his bachelor and master's at University of Oxford in anthropology. Super sharp guy. I look up to him a lot. We chat like at least weekly. So what he had said is that many people don't know this, but the creation and the expansion of the British Empire started with what were essentially pirates. So they were given rights. So they would go around, they would run under their flag, they would plunder, right? But they were basically given the right and the encouragement to run and expand those operations, and then they would be rewarded for that. So it's interesting because people think of pirates as these outlaws, which I think is an interesting idea because we're saying, hey, the status quo is chains are paying millions for oracles. You'd go, I've had friends at Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon. I know all the RASs at this point, and they would say, yeah, oracles are an actual problem for new chains because you can make building L2s accessible, but it's very demanding to just put 7 figures down if the protocol you want on your chain is working with Chainlink, because you did not have, Redstone's pulled ahead over the past year and a half, but for a long time you had Chainlink and then you had Pith, and these are not even compatible. So right now, what Redstone has been doing is they're initially a lot of Oracle teams you would see they'd give you a lot of love and attention, and then eventually they're just trying to claw their way up market, right? So the whole play with pirates for Blocksense is this romantic idea that combines well the empire building origin of them with this outlaw status quo resisting figure, and a bit of a play with the Chainlink Marines, really.
And is there like an NFT or is there something you have to do to be, be a pirate for Blocksense, or like
So people can join the community. There's an amazing group of folks that are actually a smaller core group that are very dedicated. They've been building regional, local channels. We're running games. They've been stepping in raids as well. So there are also roles that people get through Discord based on how engaged you want to be. We did have an NFT drop as well, so I can't comment on new things that will be coming up on that front, but we have done this for our users in the past. There was a really good artist that we pulled in. He was friends with one of our founders to create this for the community and to support them.
and has this been a big part of your building of your success in such a large community, or are there other aspects to it as well?
So that's a great question. I actually saw Rahil pop in a little bit ago. I see he's not here now. I don't think that I could take any credit for community building, really. Um, by the time I joined the team, the initial foundation was set up. So I met the founders in May last year. First, what I'm going to say is building community, a real community, is so much harder than people think it is,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to, everyone can bot Twitter following, can bot Discord. You can also throw money at mercenaries to go and sit in a channel, but actually meeting people, understanding where they're at, them understanding your vision, and then them consistently choosing to devote time and attention to you, and to be involved, especially as an infrastructure project, I think is really hard. Um, so Rahil, I would love to give a shout out to him. He's been a key figure in building things up from the beginning. So has this other person, Christo, who worked very closely with Rahil. It's been also challenging. Like at one point, there were maybe a dozen people dedicating a lot of time and effort, and it's been tough because you're like, you can't put people from the community on salaries necessarily. You're pre-seed funded. You don't have an unlimited bank. Um, but working with people, hanging out, spending time together, and then sharing with them where we're going, what we're building, what the intention is. So community building has really been a group effort, and I wouldn't say in a lot of these teams you have very capable technical people in crypto, and maybe you have some good people on the BD side as well from the very beginning. But these are not the people that are actually often engaged in building community. They can show up, but who's the person that's there with you every day, who helps set things up, who actually makes things happen? These are trusted community members that are maybe early supporters or very kind of eager followers. So I think these are the people that actually make the community, in my opinion. I think it would be disingenuous to try to claim, oh, I pulled numbers from this to this. It's really this team effort of engaging with people day in, day out, and having a lot of folks around you to do the same thing. We actually have a bunch of regional channels. We have weekly games. We have partnerships with other communities, just creating a good space for people to hang out and support each other at the end of the day.
I mean, yeah,
And the context happens to be that it's supported by Blocksense.
I mean, you're kind of like, I'm no stranger to the knowledge that it's really hard to build a community. Like, we are, Toronto DAO is a community, a tech community, and we have regular meetings like every week to like discuss what we need to do and how to grow it. We try to have events every couple months, and like, how do we get people to go to that? Unfortunately, we've had some great sponsors in the past to help us out with that. So, and you're right, like, you have to go into different meetings. Samir's really good at that. He will just talk to all these people in different parts of the city, different communities, and it's slow going. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we have, I think, 1,200 Twitter followers, and that's all organic. They just went through a bot purge, I believe. So I think the number of bots for that is quite low. But yeah,
Nice.
it's we're kind of proud of what we've accomplished, but I also understand, as much work as we've done, we have quite a lot of work left to do as well.
Yeah. No, it's an ongoing thing. It's a good point you're making on the bot purge, because that's the other thing actually. Um, like we have ran some campaigns where you're like, oh, the way we did this is probably not the most meaningful thing you could do. Because especially on Twitter, you're also diluting followership, who's going to see your content where. So that's a great point. In our server, just give you some high level numbers. You have 84,000 members. The pirate role folks are 79, and the Laoshi role, we have 252 people. And you have all of these regional channels. We've got people supporting in Turkish, Russian, Ukrainian, Chinese, Indonesian, Vietnamese, Nigerian, and Hindu as well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the challenge to have an international following. Unfortunately, I have no idea how we do that. Us being a local DAO, but uh, yeah, I admire all the work that you guys have done, and hopefully Toronto DAO could learn a bit about that.
Mm. I appreciate you, man. Good work on your end as well. I really appreciate you. And yeah, my entry point to learning about Toronto DAO was also Samir. So he's a total G. Respect.
And for those that want to build on Blocksense, do you have any like sorry, I have a cold, so sometimes my mind goes blank. But are there any resources for
Yes.
those who want to build on Blocksense?
Yeah. So what I think is there's probably going to we need to see where this in time is going to fall, but there's going to be more announcements soon. So if you just pull up blocksense.network, you actually see the website that talks about the universal verification layer for the autonomous economy. So this is again, it's an evolution of our positioning based on what we've seen in the market, what we've been doing over the past year. Uh, what I would encourage people to do is under resources, you see the light paper. It took us a while to get to this and lay out the big vision. Um, this is published August this year, and you see it's by Zahari Karajov, which, funnily enough, he's the primary founder, the initial founder of Blocksense Network. His the abbreviation from his name is ZK, and Magnus, who's now CEO, former head of product. So I think it can take a while to get through this, but if you understand the Shell coin consensus, so Vitalik wrote about using Shell coin or game theory to achieve consensus back in 2014, but this was never realized as technology. So I think understanding the light paper and the vision of what you're building here can be very, very meaningful. Even when you're looking at projects in perspective, right? This is like, I'm not saying this is going to be Binance, but it's like coming across the Binance light paper back when everything started. I think understanding the underlying mechanisms and this exciting and fresh idea of using game theory to achieve consensus, eventually there will be distributed compute networks that are executing things exactly in this way because it makes sense. The other thing that I would encourage people to do is under products on the blocksense.network website, I suggest you check out Agent Harbor. So if you're vibe coding today or you're using AI assistants to build, this is the new product that we've been talking about and rolling out. Actually, Magnus had a presentation at the main stage at Token on this in Hong Kong not that long ago. So if you're actually looking to use the tool and you go to the products page and then Agent Harbor, there's a contact us at the bottom. So you could drop in your details and the team will connect with you. Um, that's really it. So go-to point for people who want to learn more or actually see, okay, what are the feeds, what's being published on the Oracle side, or want to learn more about Agent Harbor when it comes to vibe coding, just check out the website and either the product page, either of these two product pages will guide you. The other suggestion is check out the light paper. I'm just toying with this idea because resources are limited for me, primarily time, but I'm going to Buenos Aires in 2 weeks, and I'm thinking of maybe trying out a reading club in Toronto. So I already have a beautiful space that we could use here. It's called East Room. The founders were actually dabbling in crypto way back, funnily enough. So one of the main owners, he studied philosophy in university. He was an early Bitcoin guy. So the team would be willing to support me, but it might be fun to run a little white paper reading club for crypto pieces.
That's
So
actually a cool
I'm
idea.
not committing to this yet. Let me come back from Buenos Aires. But I did meet a guy who's organized the Bitcoin reading club. Sorry, the white paper reading club for crypto in New York, Singapore, and Hong Kong. It's a very cool space. You like sit down, read it carefully, break it down, chat about it, right?
I feel like a lot of people would benefit from that too, right? Because even I read my fair share of white and light papers. I can't tell you I'm an expert in it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There are some phenomenal people in Toronto, actually. Just last week, I had lunch with one of the main people that was building the governance behind Maker, and he's here in Toronto. Alim Kamisa, who's a really good friend and mentor of mine. He's responsible to a great degree for becoming into crypto in the first place. He is also often Toronto based. So yeah, I think this could be a cool idea. If you wanted to check the actual white paper reading club that I met in New York, it's the white paper reading .club. And yeah, I met the main founder there. Let me come back from Buenos Aires. This could be a fun thing for us to experiment with.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I can't wait for you to come back and check that out. I'm into like I said, I have a cold, so sometimes my mind is fucked. Um,
Okay.
Take two. I can't wait for you to. If you do this, I can't wait to try it out myself.
Yeah, that could be fun. I'm glad you like it. And also, if you check out the actual White Paper Reading Club, they do share notes and stuff too. So we can see what you can see what are previous things that they've hosted. It's a cool group of people. And I randomly ran into them when I was in New York last. They had one at the White Paper Reading Club meetup. So yeah.
And Kyle's actually messaged me asking a question. So I hope you don't mind me asking it. Does Blocksense only work on public information, or can it be used for private data as well?
That's a great question. So, are you talking about, and by the way, if the question that was asked, if the person is in the chat, we can also bring them up on stage. Are you talking about achieving, resolving price data? Are you talking about running something through a large language model that would have a non-deterministic output? Like, is there
I
more
invited
context,
I
basically?
invited him to speak.
Okay.
Kaz, I don't know if you can hear I or you saw it, but I invited you to speak if you want to ask the clarifying question. Oh, there you go.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey,
Yep.
Kaz. Yeah, can hear you
Awesome.
well. Good to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for good chat. I've been listening intently. My question was really the background is if I could use it for ruling of internal arbitration, where there's sensitive data and the outcome is fairly obvious, but not obvious to all parties. But if we could have like using it as a judge in an internal dispute and based on sensitive data. So you invite a number of employees and they can have a look at the data, but no external people could.
Yeah, I see you. This actually, so it's not a use case that we're supporting yet, but it's an interesting problem to solve because what I'm seeing now is people are starting to build projects that give you an LLM, for example, at a company level, but the LLM only depending on your role in your permissions, it will give you a different answer. So, for
Yeah.
example, you could use if HR asks, this LLM can retrieve data for pay scales for employees. But if one of the other employees asks, it doesn't necessarily expose that data because you can't just cram company data in a chatbot, right? And so I think this is an interesting point. We've seen the use cases that we've seen where there's been demand that are also fitting this Oracle subcategory are, for example, proof of reserves, right? And so in this case, you would need to use trusted execution environments for access to data.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, even on the TE side, I know some great people building stuff. There's infrastructure, but consumer grade applications just aren't that great. So there is this friend and investor of ours called Nemo. So Nemo works with an angel syndicate called Daedalus. So his handle on Twitter is N like Nemo, CEROVAC, Captain Nemo. So he's been with Daedalus Angels. He's now building a project called Dory, like DORY.chat. So Dory.chat, what it does is it runs the Telegram client in a trusted execution environment to actually extract Telegram data. So why am I telling you all of this? I think the use case is cool. I see parallels where a use case like this, solving something like this would be needed for solving these other problems for customizable LLMs based on employee permissions, etc., which is something that I'm seeing more and more development in. And part of this might also require use of TE tech, but TE technology application, even building something like a Telegram client in a TE, there's a shit ton of research work behind this. He has 2 people that have been working on this for a couple of months now. They've gone pretty deep, and they're rolling out the initial version of the product. I think stuff like this are early on, to be honest. Have you been
Yeah,
working on this
so
as a problem yourself? Or is this something that you need solved for yourself?
I was chatting with one of the developers in Toronto. I help advise developers in various forums as well, and one of them is working on like a version competitor to Clearos, essentially, the on-chain judge system. And the big challenge to solve is you can't really formulaically solve for these problems. You can't put it in a TE really, where a trusted formula will solve your problem for you. It's more like you do need humans, but you don't want to expose the data to everyone. So you want to expose the data only to the humans that are allowed to issue a ruling, and then you don't want to know which ones of them voted which way. So that's where I thought that your protocol might be able to help, but I'm not sure if that's your target audience. Yeah.
Is the problem such that you need to expose the data to a human? Could you expose the data to a model instead?
Yeah, you could expose it to a model, I guess. I could have the model issue the ruling, but generally speaking, people would want to know that humans have actually done due diligence. Or
yeah, so because there's also this other team called GenLayer. I don't know if you've heard of them by any chance.
No.
So you can check them out. Smart founders. It's a very interesting vision. So initially, I thought this looked a lot more like a competitor of Blocksense. I actually met the founder a couple of months ago. I suggest you check them out. The website is genlayer.com. Might be interesting for you to ask them actually how they're thinking about this. But basically, what they've been building is they're saying AI native trust layer for synthetic jurisdiction on chain.
Yeah, that looks interesting. Yeah, I'm checking it out now.
The founders are cool. They raised a bit more. I think they raised 7 point something, roughly around the time we did the 4 million raise last year.
Cool. Where are they from?
Primarily Spain based. So I met the main founder and CEO. He's based in Barcelona. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Cheers. Thanks for the question. That's cool.
For sure.
You actually, when you figure this out, you can just tweet us under this the post for this space. It would be cool to just see what you learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question, and thank you so much for answering that impromptu question as well. But yeah, we're about running out of time. This has been great. I can't thank you enough for joining us, Martin. This is going to be fun, and I also wish you all the best in Buenos Aires. Super jealous that I won't be joining you. I have lots of fun there. It's a great city. And they have some economic problems, but when you have foreign money, it's kind of fun. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah,
I appreciate you.
Have lots of asados, dulce de leche. Oh, I ate so much and I lost weight there. That's I don't know how.
Oh well. Let's see. I'll put this to the test.
Yeah, it's just you get to enjoy food. I don't know. Maybe some people say it's less preservatives. I don't know. I just know that I didn't watch my calories, and I lost weight while I was there.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in Spain, so I feel you. Thanks so much for hosting me here. If anybody else has questions, comments, you guys can raise a hand, or if we're out of time here, feel free to just DM me as well. Happy to respond. DMs typically are overflowing, but I try to check them up every once in a while. So I appreciate you everybody for joining, and thanks so much for the invite.
Oh, thank you, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care, everybody.